Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission declared unconstitutional a portion of federal campaign finance law that prohibited corporations from spending money to purchase speech that mentioned a candidate for federal office if that speech was broadcast within 30 days of a primary or 60 days of a general election. The basic premises of election law at issue in Citizens United was whether the First Amendment prohibits the government from making distinctions among types of speakers. In particular, the question was whether corporations have a right to speak independently of campaigns and to use their general corporate treasury funds to produce political speech. The court's holding was based on the principle that the First Amendment forbids the government from drawing distinctions among speakers. Some people sometimes claim that Citizens United permitted corporations to contribute to campaigns. That is incorrect. The case did not involve contributions at all, but rather independent expenditures, and the court did nothing to undermine the complete federal ban on corporate contributions. Citizens United was a nonprofit corporation that produced a documentary critical of Hillary Clinton, who at the time was a candidate for president. Citizens United wanted to distribute the documentary and to advertise it. Because Citizens United received some money from for-profit corporations, its spending money on speech mentioning Mrs. Clinton violated the ban on corporate spending in elections. The Supreme Court pointed out that the documentary and advertising would unquestionably have been constitutionally protected if engaged in by individuals. The court therefore had to determine whether the corporate nature of the speaker stripped the speech of the protection it otherwise would have had. The court held that the speech was equally protected regardless of whether the speaker was a corporation or an individual. The effect of Citizens United has not been as large as some people anticipated. Few corporations have been willing to devote large amounts of money to spending in political campaigns. It has, however, led to the proliferation of the so-called super PAC, an organization that collects and distributes political contributions. A super PAC differs from ordinary PACs because, after Citizens United, it accepts contributions from corporations. But because we still have the ban on corporate contributions to campaigns, a super PAC cannot take its funds and give them to a candidate. Rather, a super PAC can collect funds from anybody, including corporations, but the super PAC must spend those only on independent speech. Citizens United has been criticized for placing restrictions on the government's ability to limit the effects of corporate power. On the other hand, people who consider themselves to be protectors of free speech look at Citizens United in a much more positive light and say that it stands for the proposition that the government should not tell us what kind of speech we can produce or what kind of speech we can listen to.